You can follow our news stories online too. That's gbc.gi, with posts on our Facebook page and Twitter as well. Now, in a joint statement, the Equality Rights Group and rehabilitation NGO Stay Clean are calling for the legalisation of cannabis for medical and recreational use. The present situation, they believe, only benefits the mafias who have had it too good for too long and have grown fat on the profits. Government and society, say the ERG and Stay Clean, must assume responsibility for bringing back control. The groups add that the general consensus is that cannabis may be broadly comparable to accepted social drugs such as alcohol. Clifton-Psyla asked ERG Chairman Felix Alvarez how he'd support that statement.
Well, there's a lot of expert professional research which has been done on the statistics and the effects of drugs and so on. And much of the consensus in the medical field and amongst those experts is that the level of harm which can be measured both in medical harm to the individual and social harm via crime is actually comparable in many ways to alcohol, and in many ways also actually lower with cannabis rather than alcohol. There is actually a very low incidence in say, social crime harm with regards to cannabis than there is with alcohol.
Well, there's all manner of facts and figures to support the pros and cons of legalising. You say for medical and recreational. Let's take the former first. How widely beneficial would you think it would prove?
In terms of the medical use, I think that's a pretty well proven fact that it's a strong and very effective pain reliever. Where other drugs such as morphine and so on may actually not be able to help very much in severe cases of pain, such as, for example, acute cancer situations and so on. Cannabis is a proven factor in actually helping doctors in relieving pain. So just on those grounds, we reckon that it's really wrong for us to be standing in the way of relieving suffering amongst people that need another resource, and doctors, I think, appreciate it wherever it's available. And with regards to recreational use, well, as I said before, the statistics and the experience where cannabis has actually been legalized and brought into control away from the criminal gangs, brought into a regulatory system, places where they're bought, the times when they can be bought, the ages at which they can be bought, the purity, the quality, all of that stuff, we give up.
Let me just put it to you that you're saying it's probably proven that the cannabis can act, for medicinal purposes. But research suggests too that cannabis, marijuana, can cause depression, mostly amongst young people. In fact, a study published some years ago by the British Medical Journal concluded that frequent cannabis use in teenage girls, particularly, could predict depression in later years. Now that's a pretty sobering one, isn't it? And also on such things as addiction, like most drugs, isn't there a very real risk of addiction associated with that? With another study...
The studies do not show that there is necessarily an effect of, if you smoke cannabis, you will necessarily become a hard drug user.
But it's possible.
This is what happened under Prohibition. Under Prohibition, when the US made alcohol completely illegal, what people did was, A, they had to have recourse to criminals who provided very, very potent home-brewed stuff, and all of the consumption went towards the very, very strong stuff. Immediately that the prohibition was lifted, the effect was that the vast majority of people do not go for the strong stuff. They're quite happy with a beer. They're quite happy with a lower grade thing. Less people get into the strong stuff. Yes, of course, there are secondary effects that can happen. They do happen, and they happen with every drug that we take. Whenever you go to the doctor and he gives you a pill for this or for that, there will always be a long list of secondary effects.
But couldn't one outweigh the other if somebody does not need it for medicinal purposes? And I'll refer to another study finding that 42% of users who tried to quit experienced withdrawal symptoms, irritability, sleep difficulty, decreased appetite. That's not a very good thing, is it?
As you quite rightly say, Christine, you can cite all manner of statistics and prove the other side of the story. That's what you're doing right now to counteract what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there can be nothing wrong with us saying, let's control drugs. Let's not allow the criminals to control it. Let's do away with that. We want to see in Connected Health, which is what Damien Broughton and myself, working together as Stay Clean and Equality Rights Group, are actually proposing, is that we shift from a place where we're at, which is let's incarcerate people, let's send them to prison, let's punish them, let's fine them. From there, we need to be in a place where government is in control, not the criminal gangs, and we're actually giving people treatment in an ambience, in a social setting where there is control and where there is caring. That is where we want to go.
That's Felix Alvarez speaking there on behalf of the ERG and Stay Clean charity as they call for the legalisation of cannabis for medical and recreational purposes. Speaking there to Chris Clifton-Psyla. We'll be looking